in seeing what's happening and how you're covering this and talking about the isolation, and then putting in the context of that woman you interviewed, and again, I apologize for forgetting her name, about how Yugoslavia they programmed the citizens to go into this horrifying civil war. What parallels do you see America in terms of that potentially happening?
So, Yugoslavia is a war that I covered. And you're talking about Slavenka Drakulic. She's a very fine Croatian writer. She wrote Cafe Europa. But you're right, I did interview and discussed precisely, and I was also there. I spent 3 years covering the war there. So what happened is the economic collapse of Yugoslavia, including hyperinflation, which destroyed the currency. And then you vomited up these figures like Radovan Karadzic and Slobodan Milosevic and Franjo Tuđman, ethnic nationalists, who people were unmoored. Again, those social bonds were broken, their sense of identity, dignity, self-worth was assaulted, and they retreated into these tribal factions where they found a mythical identity as a nationalist Serb or a nationalist Croat or a nationalist Kosovar Albanian or Muslim in Bosnia. And that's precisely what's happened here. So a couple of years ago, I was in Montgomery, Alabama with the civil rights attorney, Brian Stevenson. We were walking through the city, and there were all these Confederate memorials and or monuments. And Brian said, well, most of these have been put up in the last 10 years. And I said, well, that's precisely what happened in Yugoslavia. So when you strip everything away and people have nothing, they will gravitate towards these groups that in exchange for paying fealty to a certain dogma or ideology will give you a sense of belonging. But then you mentioned hate. That's important. So what you have is you have these siloed communities with different ideologies in the country. And not only are they celebrating themselves mythically, but they're also demonizing the other. And the liberals do it as they're as guilty of this as the right wing. But then you can't communicate anymore because there are no discussions based on verifiable fact. We know Russiagate was an excuse and a lie used by Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party to mask the fact that these people were completely culpable for the destruction of the working class. And, you know, it's in the book, America, the Farewell Tour, I'm in Anderson, Indiana, where GM used to have its plants, 25,000 unionized jobs, $50 an hour, benefits, pension plans, everything. And after NAFTA, they literally packed the plants up. There's these giant empty lots surrounded by cyclone fencing where some of these plants used to be, ship them to Monterrey, Mexico, where they pay workers $3 an hour without any benefits, and then drive the cars back over the border and sell them. Well, of course, Anderson's fallen into the tailspin that you brought up at the beginning of most American cities boarded up. The one whole half of the city was, when I was there, they were closing its one supermarket. Churches are boarded up, houses are boarded up, suicides are rampant. The opioid epidemic is rampant. Well, of course, that's and these people were not going to. They actually voted. Most of the former union members voted for Sanders, but they weren't going to vote for Clinton. They knew who did this to them. And you know, this is of course the problem with Biden. Biden was anointed by the power centers in the Democratic Party because he has paid fealty and loyalty to this neoliberal agenda throughout his entire career. And what Gore Vidal used to call the United States of amnesia. His track record is appalling. He's the one who gave us Clarence Thomas and, of course, humiliated Anita Hill. He was one of the principal architects of the endless wars in the Middle East and was running around the Senate calling for taking down Saddam Hussein years before the invasion. And then he went on to rehabilitate the de facto Saudi ruler, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who murdered my friend Jamal Khashoggi. He is a long supporter of the apartheid state of Israel. I mean, in fact, has said, I'm a Zionist. In the 1970s, he fought school busing and argued that segregation was a good thing for black people, and worked in the Senate with Strom Thurmond, South Carolina's racist senator, for the Comprehensive Crime Control Act that eliminated parole for federal prisoners and limited the amount of time sentences could be reduced for good behavior. He pushed the 1994 Omnibus Crime Bill, which he helped draft. He expanded the death penalty for dozens of existing and new federal crimes. He was behind the whole 3 strikes you're out, the mandated life imprisonment for a third violent felony. He and Clinton double the nation's prison population. They put 100,000 new police officers on the streets. They built gave millions of dollars for new prisons. They pushed through the 96 Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act that gutted the federal writ of habeas corpus. He helped write the Patriot Act. He backed all of the austerity programs, destruction of welfare under Clinton, and 70% of the original recipients under the old welfare program were children. He has long advocated cuts to Social Security. He pushed through NAFTA. He backed the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act, which eliminated key defenses against deportation. I mean, it's just endless. And that's why he was behind the abolition of Glass-Steagall, which ripped down the firewalls between commercial and investment banks and led to the collapse of almost 500 banks, and the global financial crisis of 2007, 2008. And he's a big, he's long been funded. I used to call him Senator Credit Card from Delaware, because he basically was a lobbyist for the credit card industry, many of which are based in Delaware. He's long been funded by the for-profit insurance and pharmaceutical industry. So that's why he is where he is. And I fault the media for not, especially because they wanted to get rid of Trump, the liberal media. They never called him out. There was never any investigation into who. It's all these manufactured personalities where, to make him a kind of emotionally appealing, but the actual issues are just erased. So this is a perpetuation of the very political, economic, and social system that's got us into this mess, and we're not gonna get out of it. And the worse it gets, the more polarized the country becomes, the more violent the country becomes, and the more we flirt with a real kind of overt Christian fascism. I wrote a book about this a few years ago called American Fascists, the Christian Right in the War on America. Remember, Trump had no real ideology, but into that political vacuum was filled by these Christian fascists, Pence, Pompeo, Barr, we forget, Betsy DeVos, but then, of course, hundreds of low-level positions. And I think we are standing now on the cusp of electing a competent fascist, somebody who has a longer attention span and is more intelligent than Trump. I don't know who that's going to be, DeSantis, Pompeo, I don't know. But that's where we're headed.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I will say this about Joe Biden. His tweets were nice though, Chris. I mean, wasn't that, I know you
think he wrote them?
I don't think.
Remember when somebody decided that Mick Jagger was going to tweet, and it was so clear it wasn't Mick Jagger. It was like "Have a nice day" stuff. Biden doesn't tweet. Biden has enough trouble showering and shaving and putting on his suit.
He doesn't know what day it is. I mean, that's the other thing too. Like the media, I think because the media is so complicit in everything that you've listed. Trump was bad because Trump got the neoliberals out to stand up out of the brunch table and actually protest in the streets. And when you have a nice, sleepy Democrat like Joe Biden or a well-spoken warmonger like Obama, then liberals are, they can't be, then they're not going to protest because they just want to live in their little crazy world. It's the Republicans, the Democrats aren't perfect, but the Republicans, they're so much worse. And it's like, no, they don't want to pay attention. And the media definitely fuels that. And like you say, like Corbett said, the United States of amnesia is just such a perfect description of this country. People's historical reference goes back about 6 weeks, maybe 6 days. I don't know. And so my question to you though, too, is as we discuss Biden, I've said from day one, he's not going to finish his first term. And, they want somebody else in there. And I think they're going to use his health. But as I'm seeing this, these classified documents that are showing up in his house, and again, it just shows you. To me, it's as a political comedian, it's hilarious. Like both him and Trump both took classified documents home. I mean, it's just like it just shows you how vapid the whole system is.
Well, Graham, they all do. I mean, every president, Obama's got them. They all do. They take stacks of them home to their libraries to write their. I mean, these other thing about these libraries, which Obama's got $500 million for 2 libraries. I mean, but they all do. They all do it. I mean, when they went after Trump, and I'm not defending Trump, but every president, Pompeo had CIA documents. They found they all take documents home. All. So the difference is Trump probably had no idea what he had. That's probably the only difference.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, I thought it was new documents for a new golf course I'm going to build.
I don't think Trump's pouring through. I never got a sense of Trump pouring through documents.
Just eating Wendy's, just pouring through. No,
he eats those. What do they? He eats some. He's addicted to some kind of candy or something. I heard a story I wasn't allowed to repeat when he was president. It was somebody who worked in the White House that he spent most of the morning with half of his hair falling down on his shoulder because it wasn't combed over, walking around in a wife beater t-shirt, tweeting and watching Fox and Friends and eating candies and throwing the wrappers on the floor that they had to pick up. So, I mean, it was only one source, but it's completely believable. But he wasn't reading.
It's not like
he wasn't reading documents. He has no idea what's in the boxes in Mar-a-Lago.
There's no idea. They said, President Trump, please just take these back to your house like this. And he's like, all right, fine. We're running out of space. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. We are still in our 9th month of demonetization from YouTube. So support what we're doing at patreon.com/Graham Elwood or rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, which is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. It's free to sign up, and there's a premium level at $10 a month. And for that, you get everybody on the platform's premium content. Myself, Lee Camp, Ron Placone, Jimmy Dore, Whitney Webb, Kim Iverson, Abby Martin, and many, many others. You can also support what we're doing at Venmo at Graham-Elwood and go to GrahamElwood.com. We have a PayPal button and a P.O. box. I also have crypto wallets, which are all in the show notes. Thanks for supporting what we do.